This is the face of a young French woman from the late 18th century. Her name and the circumstances of her posing for this painting are unknown, but it is likely that she was a paid painter's model. Many working-class girls and young women in 18th and 19th century Paris and other artistic centers made a little extra money by posing for painters and sculptors. Many of them, like the woman in this painting, posed for artists partially or wholly undressed. Until the last quarter of the 19th century, those artists were almost always men. It was not socially acceptable for female artists to paint from a nude model. These models came from a range of backgrounds. Some worked for many painters and appeared in many works. Others may have caught a particular artist's eye, posed for one or two paintings, and then returned to obscurity. Some female models made a good living and were well treated by the artists they posed for, but as a class they were always vulnerable to exploitation and abuse. They provided female faces and female bodies for artists who were creating works in which, unlike portraits of high-status sitters, the individual identities of the models did not matter. In the vast majority of cases we do not know their names or anything of their lives, but their bodies pose before us, and their faces look out at us from the work of artists whose names we do know. This painting, Jeune, fille, buste, painted around 1794 or 5 by French Neoclassical painter Pierre-Narcisse Guérin, is such a work. It creates from the face and body of this unknown woman a simple but compelling work of art that is provocative on many levels. Whoever she may have been in reality, on this small canvas she participates in a new style of painting for a new age, and represents a new woman from a new era of revolution. Pierre-Narcisse Guérin is not a big name today, but around the turn of the 18th and 19th centuries he was famous and celebrated, and was spoken of as an artistic successor to the famous neoclassical artist Jacques-Louis David. From the early age of 11 he was a pupil of Jean-Baptiste Regnault at the Académie Royale de Peinture et de Sculpture, and made his debut at the Salon in 1795 with a wash drawing and a painting, both on themes from Roman history. In 1797 he was one of the winners of the Prix de Rome with his depiction of the Death of Cato, although he was not able to travel to Rome itself because of the disturbed state of European politics. Guérin's breakthrough came at the Salon of 1799, when he created a sensation with his Return of Marcus Sextus. This large painting had originally been a depiction of the return of the blinded Byzantine general Belisarius to his family, but Guérin altered it to represent a more novel and, he hoped, topical theme. He removed the bandage from the central figure's eyes, renamed him Marcus Sextus, and set the scene in the Roman Republic rather than the Byzantine Empire. The return of Marcus Sextus was so popular that barriers had to be erected to protect it from the enthusiastic crowds. This reception was due not so much to its inherent qualities, which are not particularly noteworthy, as to its contemporary resonance. It shows a Roman citizen, exiled under the dictatorship of Sulla, returning home to find his wife dead and his family desolate. At a time when those who had been exiled from France during the Revolution were returning, the political significance of the image was impossible to miss. This triumph not only laid the foundations for Guérin's artistic success, it also positioned him as an artist able to benefit from France's political turn away from revolutionary turmoil towards conservatism and ultimately to a revival of monarchy. He was finally able to study in Italy from 1801 to 1805, and on his return to France made a successful career painting scenes glorifying the Napoleonic and subsequent monarchical regime and royalist heroes, and depicting his typical classical and mythological subject matter and scenes from the theatre. He was also an innovative and highly influential teacher. Pupils in his studio included Géricault, Delacroix, Scheffer, and other figures later associated with the Romantic movement. He ended his career as director of the French Academy in Rome, where he died in 1833. Jeune, fille, buste is an early work by Guérin, painted in the mid-1790s, before he burst into public prominence with his Return of Marcus Sextus. He was 19 or 20 years old, and still studying with Reynaud, and may have completed this painting as an exercise or a study for another work, although the picture is more highly finished than would be normal for such preparatory work. It is a very simple painting, small in size, carefully modelled, and smoothly finished. The fact that it is a half-length portrait, as indicated by the French term en buste, creates a powerful sense of intimacy between the sitter and the viewer, while the partial nudity brings an erotic charge to the image. It is likely that Guérin, either on his own or in partnership with other art students, paid his sitter to pose for him. Life drawing was fundamental to academic artistic training, but official academies of art at this time provided only male models, except on very rare occasions, and female nude models were unknown until the mid to late 19th century. Thus, 18th century artists who wanted to draw from or paint the nude using female life models had to do so outside the academy, in private studios, or by making their own arrangements to hire models. The young woman is posed against a plain background, fairly brightly lit, illuminated from the left of the canvas. She is not face-on to the picture plane, but is turned slightly to her right, and is holding her head square to her body and looking almost straight ahead, but her eyes are turned very slightly to her left. The turning of her body so that one cheek is brightly lit and the other is shaded, one shoulder is in full light and the other in shadow, gives a sense of a recession in space, increasing the effect of three-dimensionality, while the aversion of her gaze from the viewer gives character and dynamism to what is otherwise a static image, and creates an atmosphere of self-containment. The sitter's face is a distinctive one, with long straight nose, deep-set eyes with a greenish tint, and firmly modelled mouth and chin. Guérin has shown her cheeks slightly flushed. Her hair is thick, dark brown, and is cut dramatically and roughly short, creating a vigorous and unkempt impression. Her hands are raised to the front of her body, and she has spread her fingers across her breasts. She is naked, except for some drapery gathered beneath her hands and forearms, as if she has pulled her clothing down to expose her upper body, but is now covering herself. The result is ambiguous, for the positioning of her hands reveals as much as it conceals. Indeed, her spread fingers accentuate and draw attention to what is being covered up. She seems to hover between enclosure and exposure, veiling and unveiling. There is a strong suggestion of vulnerability, but the composed expression of her face, with firmly closed lips and distant but clear-eyed gaze, gives a contrasting impression of inner strength and self-containment. There is no narrative, and no biographical element to the picture, as there is no identification of the individual represented. Just three visual elements are present: the sitter, the drapery she holds, and the background behind her. All three are represented with the simplicity and restraint that is typical of neoclassical painting. The palette is very restricted, dominated by golden brown flesh tones, the dark browns of the hair, and the grey and pale ochre of the background. The lighter tones of the drapery and the reddish tints of cheeks and lips provide a subtle visual counterpoint and a note of sensuality. There are many aspects of the painting that contribute to its compelling character, but perhaps the most eye-catching is the dramatically short, roughly cut style of the woman's hair. This is a novel and thoroughly revolutionary hairstyle for a woman to wear, and this 1794 painting may be the first visual record of the style. It is sometimes suggested that this manner of cutting the hair short was a reference to the cropping of the hair of victims of the guillotine. Women supposedly wore this style, known as coiffure à la victime, at parties, the so-called bal des victimes, attended by relatives of those who had gone to the guillotine. But there is very little evidence for such parties ever having taken place, and while short hair might have had this significance for some, its association with ancient Rome and republican virtue was far more important. This style was not known as coiffure à la victime, which is a later invention, but coiffure à la Titus. The Titus in question was not the Roman emperor of that name, but an earlier figure, the son of Lucius Junius Brutus, who overthrew the kings of Rome and established the Roman Republic. When his sons, Titus and Tiberius, plotted to restore the monarchy, he had them executed. The Roman Republic was a powerful model and source of inspiration in the French Revolution, with Brutus as a key figure in republican iconography. In 1788, Guillaume Lethière displayed his painting of Brutus condemning his sons to death, complete with severed head being shown to the crowd in true revolutionary style, while the following year Jacques-Louis David exhibited his controversial depiction of the lictors bringing Brutus the bodies of his sons. And when Voltaire's play Brutus, first staged in 1730, was revived in 1791, it caused a similar sensation. The actors who played the lead roles in the drama had short hairstyles, believed to be faithful to the austere manner of the Roman Republic, and this style was immediately and widely imitated, ironically being named after Titus, the pro-monarchical conspirator, rather than his stalwartly republican father, Brutus. Both men and women adopted the style. Indeed, short hair for women remained in fashion in France into the 1820s, with the description à la Titus being used for short styles, although they were not always as consciously rough in execution as in the 1790s. That is the style worn by the woman in this painting. At this early date, the coiffure à la Titus was emblematic of alignment with the new revolutionary era and a symbol of republican virtue. Combined with the restrained and balanced neoclassical style of the picture and the high level of finish, the result is a painting which embodies the idea of a new era of freedom and fertility and youthful revolutionary energy.